thanks for joining us this afternoon if you're on the East Coast, this evening if you're in India. India is probably, it's not even evening, it's probably night. So welcome, welcome. We're going to give folks just a few more minutes to join here and we'll get started. Excellent. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started as folks are joining, but by way of introduction, my name is Teresa Leatherow, and I'm the Executive Director of our TiE Pittsburgh chapter. Sincerely thank you. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you to Harsh Joshi's talk, Peak Performance, Harsh Realities, Scaling Success. We are very happy and eager to hear from Harsh today. And this is a reminder that following Harsh's talk, we will offer the opportunity to ask Harsh questions. So you can include those in the chat and our moderator will be sure to communicate them to Harsh. With that being said, I just wanted to also in the Zoom chat, I'll drop some links so that you can stay engaged with TiE Pittsburgh to our website and to our mailing list, as well as my email for TiE if you like to reach out, or if there's anything that you have questions about or concerns about. But that being said, it's an absolute pleasure for me to introduce our talk moderator, Krishna Pendiala. Krishna is an author, speaker, and advisor who helps executives, entrepreneurs, and their teams navigate and make better choices. He is now the founder and chief empowerment officer of the Choice Ladder Institute and co-founder and president of the Mindful Nation Foundation. He advises entrepreneurs and executives in the development of their judgment quotient and other essential skills so that their large and small choices align with their goals and values and help them achieving lasting and extraordinary success. Krishna is also a TiE Pittsburgh charter member. And with that, I hand over the microphone to Krishna.
Thank you, Teresa. I didn't realize you were going to read that long, so thank you. I'll keep it short. So the TiE Talks has been something we started a couple of years ago. Our wonderful president, Prashant, and I thought about it and came up with this idea, how can we make it a little different from TED Talks? Because in a TED Talk, typically they get to speak and nobody gets to ask any questions. So a TiE Talk is the reverse. Once you have the opportunity to hear the speaker, we have ample opportunity for you to ask questions. And that's why the richness actually from the TiE Talks we've had before, the richness is not only in the talk, but really through the Q&A. So I really want to engage you in a good Q&A session, especially since this topic is very interesting. The other thing we do about TiE Talks is there's a theme, unlike TED Talks, which is two pearls of wisdom, one personal and one professional, that people have gained through their careers. And therefore, we've always picked people who have had long careers. And here we're going to have an exception, which is we have a 25-year-old. But this 25-year-old is not unlike typical 25-year-old. He has done a lot. So I thought we'll capture his pulse of wisdom at 25 and not go all the way till he's done with his career, because that may end up taking an entire day. So with that, I want to thank Ganesh for discovering Harsh. And Ganesh, I'd like you to introduce Harsh to the audience.
Thank you, Krishna. We're lucky to have two experts, Krishna, who is these days an expert on mental agility and endurance, and Harsh, who is an expert on physical agility and endurance. Over the last week or so, we saw billionaires, even this morning, hurtling into space, right? That's an accomplishment at one end of the spectrum, large carbon footprint. And here is Harsh, 25 years old, with the minimal footprint going up to almost similar heights. I think that's sort of an interesting spectrum, both great accomplishments, something to think about. And I think for entrepreneurs in the audience, maybe, we want to be thinking about scaling peaks from the living room, from the workout room, using AR, VR type of things. Maybe Harsh can be sort of an expert. I think entrepreneurs will learn things about preparation, about risk management, when to quit, etc. before I came to this country, one of the last adventures, if you will, we had the Himankan group at my undergrad college. We went up to the Himalayas, 13,000 feet. We thought we were going to be at peaks. It turns out that 13,000 feet in the Himalayas is a pass. Very humbling to one be there, and then a lot of respect for Harsh. I think the more accomplished people are, they have shorter bios, right? And I think Krishna is a fan of 6 words. So let me try to introduce Harsh in 6 words. Everest scaler, sustainability expert, and after today, I think entrepreneur Sherpa. With that, Harsh, take it away.
Thank you so much for such a kind introduction, Ganesh, and thank you for having me, TiE Pittsburgh, and everyone in the audience. So, without wasting much time, I'll get started. I recently climbed Mount Everest, which is the highest peak on Earth, and this is a picture from up there, a selfie from the closest I can get to space at this age, given my academic background. And this is Mount Everest, the almighty Mount Everest. So for those who don't know, it takes 2 months to climb Mount Everest, and even climbing Mount Everest is sort of a financial mountain as well. Obviously, nothing compared to the entrepreneurs in West, but for me at this age, fundraising that $70,000 was equally, if not more difficult than climbing Everest itself. And I'll try to share some of the lessons which I learned during this journey. So a lot of people who meet me now think that I was always an athletic kid. I was always into outdoors. But the truth is, a surprising fact is that I never ran more than 100 meters until I turned 18. I was a geek in school, and I would just study, get the best grades to get one video game CD after every semester. And then I started working at the age of 15 when I met a group of doctors from my hometown who took me to a nearby hike. And they were avid trekkers. They would trek in the Himalayas, and they introduced me to trekking. But back in those days, as a teenager, I was busy chasing materialistic goals, and I couldn't afford to travel. I had never traveled before that in my life, not even in India. And then 4 years later, when I was in my second year of engineering, when I turned 18, I was independent and I got reintroduced to trekking. So whatever I get into, I try to do it passionately. So when I got into trekking, when I did my first trek, which was also 13,000 feet like Ganesh, I knew that someday I'm gonna climb Everest. I didn't know back then that when is that gonna happen, because I knew I would require years and years of preparation, experience, and at least 50 lakh rupees. And I was busy with my engineering, then my dream of pursuing a master's and then getting a job, and then maybe I would have achieved that dream at the age of 40. But fortunately, it happened just in the next 6 years. So as I started venturing outdoors, I realized that travel is the best teacher, and it is such an enlightening and great learning experience that I just got more into it, and I started taking up mountaineering courses. So between 2016 and 2019, I ended up taking 9 courses in outdoors, and I spent few months in the Himalayas after every semester. In 2017, when I graduated from engineering, I was gonna go for an MBA in one of the B schools in India. And just when I was securing my seat and applying for an education loan, many of my friends put in the idea that, hey, your life seems much better in the Himalayas, and if you take up this course and the job now, then you might never be able to climb Everest. So I also thought about it that Everest can be a substitute for my MBA. And while climbing Everest, not only will I learn a lot of life lessons for sure, but during the preparation, during the journey, it would teach me much more than an MBA, during the fundraising, during the operations, while figuring out the finance. And today I can proudly say that it was all worth it. Although I'm still gonna go for an MBA and try to spread the lessons from there in the corporate world and inspire many more people to go outdoors and find the balance. So I decided in 2017 that I'll be attempting Everest in 2020, but so that I have enough time to prepare more to increase the probability of my summit, and so that I don't have the financial stress over my head. That how will I raise the amount? Probably in those 3 years, I was gonna figure out how to do it. And then fast forward to 2020, the pandemic came in, and due to travel restrictions, I couldn't attempt Everest. No one could attempt Everest, and I ended up doing Ironman triathlon on World Mental Health Awareness Day. Since I am an endurance athlete and both sports have similar training, like both are endurance-based sports. And then again, I started preparing for Everest for 2021. In 2021, we set out for Everest on 30 March. I was the leader of a 12-member international team, and everything was going great until the 8th of May, around 40 days after my expedition. On 8th of May, the same night, I was supposed to leave for my summit push, and I also had a doctor in my team. So we randomly did some COVID tests. We were doing it every few days because there were some COVID cases at Everest Base Camp, and there are no medical facilities, nor we have communications, and all teams are social distancing. So we didn't know if it's true, but we were just taking precautions. And surprisingly, to my shock, there was a line on my rapid antigen test on the TiE, and it was obvious that I cannot go up there because the conditions out there are precisely what shouldn't be there for COVID. Lack of oxygen, your body is under stress, there are no communications, no infrastructure, no medical backup, and choppers also cannot fly above a certain altitude. So I just isolated myself. I tried to be optimistic that there would be another summit window. The summit window was predicted from 11th to 14th of May, and Everest can be climbed only once a year, attempted only once a year, when the weather is clear just before the monsoon and the jet stream, the winds above 8,000 meters go below 40 kilometers per hour, or basically 30 kilometers per hour. Only then it is possible, like not even safe, but possible to attempt the summit. So I sent my team up for the summit push, and I isolated myself. I started consulting a few doctors. Some of them told me to just wait and watch for the symptoms. I already started the supplements and treatment. I was already taking some, and some doctors were very straightforward that, hey, just take a chopper and fly to Kathmandu to avoid further complications or hospitalization. Some were really harsh. They told me that don't be stupid, don't kill yourself up there no matter how much you have invested. And I totally respect that, but I told them that I'm taking a calculated risk. I obviously played safe by not going up there and doing the test, but I cannot just give up and go right away because there won't be a summit window later, and I don't want to go through the same process for another 1 year unnecessarily. Obviously, if it wouldn't happen, I would try even 5 times till I have achieved my goal. But for that time, I said that I have supplemental oxygen. There is a chopper at disposal at Everest Base Camp. I have a doctor in my team, so I'll take my chances. And then I waited out for next 11 days. In the meantime, my team reached the summit camp, Camp 4. It takes 4 days to reach from base camp to the top of Everest. And just when they were at the summit camp, the wind speed suddenly rose. So they couldn't move out of their tents. They survived that night on the night of 12th. Although the weather was supposed to be clear till 14th, but there was a cyclone which hit the Indian Sea on the west coast of India, cyclone Tauktae, which affected a lot on Everest. So there were also 2 climbers from other teams, one American and one Swiss guy who died while returning from the summit on 12th May. Like, people could see them. They were a few hours away, but the conditions up there are so hostile that you cannot risk another few lives to save someone. Usually people are very helpful in the mountains, very brave, but you also have to be very practical and very focused. So my team returned back on 15th, 16th May, and by 19th May, my isolation period was over. I had very minor symptoms in the start, which also we were not sure if it was due to supplements or medication or due to COVID. And I had taken both shots of vaccine, so I was basically asymptomatic. I did a test, tried to test my body nearby, and everything seemed fine. So on 19th evening, just as I was eating my dinner, I got the weather update for that day. Every evening we would get weather updates via SMS on our sat phone that this is the predicted wind speed for morning and evening for the next 5 days or 7 days. And there is another cyclone coming named Cyclone Yas in the Indian Ocean, due to which we might not even be able to attend the summit this year. And this happens a lot of times, which was a possibility. But then there was a very narrow summit window on the morning of 23rd. It was my decision if I wanted to attempt it. I would have to attempt it in 3 days instead of 4, but I decided to take my chances. And then the same night at 7 p.m. I got this news. Same night I left with my Sherpa. Like at 11 p.m. we had our breakfast, and at 12 a.m. we started our journey directly to Camp 2. So just to share the give you a perspective of how the route is like, let me show it with a map. So this is the base camp at 17,600 feet, and the difference between reaching the Everest base camp and the summit is of a whooping $65,000 and 2 months. So to reach base camp, you need just 10 days, but to reach the summit, you need 2 months and maybe 2 to 10 years of preparation. So first we go from base camp, passing the Khumbu icefall, which is the most dangerous part of Everest, reaching Camp 1, then Camp 2, then Camp 3, which is on a steep slope, followed by Camp 4, which is in the dead zone at the South Pole, to the summit. So this is me leaving at 12 a.m. for the summit push. And next morning, like the entire night, we had to pass a lot of crevasses in the Khumbu icefall. This is the Khumbu icefall, which is the deadliest place at Everest, because it is prone to a lot of avalanches. It is prone to the crevasses breaking out, and a lot of people die out there, more than the people who die near the peak. And then we crossed Camp 1. I directly went to Camp 2, and next morning I started my trek to Camp 3, which is on a slope like this, on a 50-60 degree slope, very windy conditions, prone to avalanche again. And then next day, morning 3 a.m., we started our push to Camp 4 in the dead zone. It is called the dead zone because above 8,000 meters, your body cannot acclimatize. No matter, even if you are on a supplemental oxygen flow, you are slowly dying. That is an altitude where all your organs are slowly shutting down and you are on borrowed time. So the same day we were supposed to attempt the summit, and anyways, because the weather window was predicted for that night. It was very windy throughout, but we were hoping that that night the wind would go down. I reached Camp 4 around 2:30 p.m. and the same evening I was supposed to leave for the summit push between 6 or 8, but then it was so windy, so we decided to let the wind slow down and let few other climbers go up so that there are more people on the trail. It's always good to have more people on the mountain. And eventually I started at 9:40 p.m. because half of the teams were giving up. This was me at Camp 4 on supplemental oxygen. And then at 9:40 p.m., we counted a few headlamps on the route. As you can see, there were more than 40-50 people already on the trail. And I started at 9:40 p.m. to reach the balcony, this spot, by 3 a.m. So it takes around 4 hours to reach there. And on the way, me and my Sherpa, we unclipped ourselves from the fixed rope and overtook most of the crowd. Since I'm slightly faster than most of them, I had put in the work, but still it was so uncomfortable, inconvenient. There would be a huge blow of wind which would blow me and my Sherpa, and we both would fall down in the snow and get up and keep climbing. And I would ask my Sherpa that, hey, are we doing the right thing? And the weather prediction was definitely wrong, but he would tell me that a lot of people are taking the risk, so let's just keep pushing till our bodies are supporting. At least physically I was fine. This was an external factor which I couldn't do anything about, but to be honest, I couldn't enjoy that night because it felt like you are being stung by bees on the face. The wind is so strong and it brings hail and snow from the surface of the mountain. So this part is covered with an oxygen mask, and I was even wearing ski goggles in pitch dark. But here and all over the body, even though we were wearing space suits, it was really harsh. But eventually, by 4 a.m., the colors started changing on the Tibet side. Let me show you. It was magical. Like I could see all sorts of colors. This was we climbing through the night. And then eventually the sky was like this on the north side, on the Tibet side. And I could see a shadow of Everest, a huge pyramid, a perfect pyramid on the left side. So it was magical. Although it was very windy, very uncomfortable, but it was also euphoric. This is the line of climbers which I overtook, and then there were just like 10 people ahead of me that night, because since it was one of the last days when one could attempt the summit, over 150 people attempted the summit, and more than half of them obviously turned back. And then eventually I reached South Summit around 4:30 a.m. And my Sherpa told me that, hey, it's just 1.5 hours from here. So I was asking my Sherpa that, hey, should we turn around or anything? Because I'm a very lazy guy and I like to play very safe. But when I reached here, I had tears in my eyes because I knew I'm gonna make it. Although it was very windy, but I knew that if we came this far, it's not impossible task anymore. Until then, I wasn't sure. Like a lot of people turn around from within 100 meters from the summit, but now I knew that it's gonna happen. And although I wanted to cry of joy, but you cannot really cry up there because your tears would freeze. And then I just increased my oxygen flow. Until then, I was using it at just 2 liters per minute. Then I increased it to 3 liters per minute. And within 40 minutes, I was at the summit of Mount Everest. And a lot of people ask me that, how did I feel at the top of the world? I'm sure some of you might have the same question, but to be honest, I was not very excited or very happy like I should have been, like after so many years of hard work, and it meant a lot to me. But I only felt relieved that it's done, and I felt grateful that despite all the odds, I could make it. And that is when I was like enlightened with my first pearl of wisdom, which was more of a personal thing, is having clarity of the goal. And there I realized I already knew that I cannot celebrate. I touched my Sherpa's feet first of all, because I told him that, hey, you took care of my safety and you guided me, so the credit should be yours. Although he was like, no sir, what are you doing? And then I told him, we will spend just 5-10 minutes up here, click some pictures with the NGO's flag, with Indian flag and some of my partners, and we need to go down, because success isn't coming home safely. Like going to the summit is just 10%, but coming home back is the 90%. And a lot of us get lost about what is the goal, but it's never about the destination, it's about the journey. So this was the first thing which I realized. And second thing which I was very happy about is that on reaching a mountaintop, you realize that there is so much space for more people to come up there, more people to be up there, and you are in the prime position to help others up. So this was sort of a professional takeaway for me, that when you are up there, when you are successful, or when you are at the top, you can help a lot of other people up, and you also realize that there is space for more than one person. So these are two pearls of wisdom. And about the goal and the journey, I know it even better is because after coming down, I was still stuck at Camp 2 for another 1 week in a cyclone. I couldn't call home. I couldn't call anyone. There was no sun, so I couldn't charge my devices. Our sat phone ran out of battery, and I couldn't tell the world that I've climbed Everest. So I only returned home 15 days after the summit, but as long as I returned home safely, I was just patient and calm and optimistic. Although those 7 days were the longest days of my life, but it was all worth it. So this is my story, and I'm looking forward to your question.
Wow. Guys, you can unmute and clap. That was fantastic. Thank you, Harsh. And I have to say, of all the TiE Talks speakers I've
Thank
engaged
you,
with,
Harsh.
I must say, Harsh, of all the TiE Talk speakers I have worked with, you were the first person who took my request seriously and actually came up with two pearls of wisdom. And I had the good fortune of spending some time with Harsh on two different occasions to craft his story. And it was so interesting when he first said, you know, everybody thinks summit is the issue. When I don't know if you caught the no detail there, 90% of the fatalities happen on the way down. So reaching the top is not necessarily the goal. That's a part of the goal. But coming home safely, I thought was fantastic that we tend to forget when we set our goals is what is the real goal at the end. So Harsh, I know we talked about this very briefly. I know you put in a lot of work and I have questions from the audience, but my first question to you was, while you committed a lot of effort to preparing for this journey, what were the things you were willing to sacrifice and give up? Were they conscious or they just showed up as you started on this journey?
Most of it was conscious, but now I realize that a lot of things more which was sacrificed, and I never knew that this is gonna happen. So one main thing is my social life. So even now, after returning from Everest, I don't have a very good social life. Since past few years, I was so engrossed in this. I would wake up at 4 a.m. I would go for my workouts alone since I was following a structured scientific plan for myself for Everest. And then I would read and watch stuff only around Everest or mountaineering, which were taking me closer to the goal. I wouldn't eat outside. So everything in my life around me was only uh, around Everest, only taking me closer to the Everest. And I think those sacrifices were worth it. I obviously took a break from my career. I couldn't go for my MS in US or MBA, and I did make a few more sacrifices. But I think that it is easy to sacrifice when you have an interesting goal to chase like this one. And I also realized like this maturity came with years that we shouldn't be scared of sacrifices or struggle, because we shouldn't think of it as a challenge but as an opportunity. Only with struggle we can achieve true success. Without struggle we cannot go very far. So I think all these sacrifices were worth it, and now I'm going to make up for it, hopefully.
Thank you very much. One of the questions we have from the audience is, how much time did it take to prepare to climb Everest? I think you kind of alluded to it, 4 years, but if you could maybe talk about your planning, that would be kind of interesting to a lot of people out there.
So specifically, since I was always already a trained mountaineer with a little or a lot of Himalayan experience, I took just 1 or 2 years of very specific training for Everest or preparations for Everest, and it depends from person to person. Like there was a person this year who was training for 21 years. I will mention him in the closure, and he successfully climbed Everest this year. So some people might take 6 months, people might take 5 years, but I think 2 to 5 years is a good time for an average person who has no exposure to mountaineering earlier.
So here is one thing that I caught while you mentioned, you said you're a very lazy guy and you're very safe. Based on what you shared, how do you kind of substantiate that? Would you call yourself very lazy and very safe?
I am very lazy. Trust me. So it's the discipline which keeps me going. Every morning when I wake up, I feel like skipping that workout. Every day when I have a task, I feel like delaying that email. But then, and especially when you have a goal like Everest, I just tell myself that hey, I need to work hard here so that I can enjoy up there. Plus, my life is dependent on this. So if I cut corners, I can lose life up there, and I can definitely lose my uh, money, like which I don't even have. So and years of preparation. So even when I got COVID, I was just like, it's okay. I'll fundraise again some or the other way. I'll work hard for that. But the lost time is a very big loss for me. So yeah, that discipline kept me going, and I tell this to everyone that sweat more here so that you bleed less in war. So going for a mountaineering objective is sort of like going on war with nature. Although you can never win, but you can at least survive and learn something from it.
Wow, those are some very profound statements, Harsh. Thank you. And so one of the questions is, how did you deal with all the naysayers who were skeptical before you went? I mean, I bet a lot of people are risk averse, and probably you had a stream of people who dissuaded you and discouraged you from doing this. How did you deal with that?
I ignored them. I didn't let them get to me. Obviously, it's gonna affect you, but see, most of the people are gonna dissuade you until you are successful, and when you are successful, they are gonna come to click a selfie, and that's why 99% of the people are not successful, not happy. So when you are doing something different, you shouldn't be very scared. And yeah, it took some courage, but I was passionate about it. So I don't know how, but I managed somehow.
Wow, wow. Well, you did really well. And this is probably a question you've been asked before, but if not, when you were up there and looked around, and I know you said you didn't feel a lot of success and so on right there about reaching your goal, but did you have any spiritual epiphanies?
Um, yeah, but I think there is no one specific moment. A lot of people ask me, "Ki, what changed your life or what made you climb Everest?" So I think it happens over days and months and conversations with a lot of people like you, like strangers we meet anywhere. So even out there, I think every day was a spiritual awakening with a lot of realizations. I became much more calmer as I returned from there, and I'm so happy that usually I would panic like anything, but even when I had COVID, that 10 days I did not give up, and I handled myself optimistically. Some of my friends helped me, like I would call people and talk to them. First, I would tell them that, oh no, I so wanted to finish my book this year and apply for scholarships in US so that I can chase some other goals or experience more professionalism in outdoors in North America. And now I'll have to go through the entire journey again. I definitely cannot crowdfund. But then I just stayed optimistic, and then I thought of taking one step at a time, just thinking of one day at a time. I even started meditating for sort of the first time in life, and I just trusted in the process, and things worked out for me. Similarly, when I was up there, similarly when I was climbing, and after that when I was stuck at camp 2, coming down was actually much more risky and much more dangerous. I even faced an avalanche and something, and sometimes there were moments I thought that will I go home alive, but then I just focused on the process, not on the result. I trusted in the consistency, and everything did work out in favor.
Wow, wow. Very, very eloquent, Harsh. How did you mentally prepare yourself for mountaineering?
Good question. I get this asked a lot. And to be honest, there is no specific method to train your mind, at least for mountaineering. It only comes with experience. So the more mountains you climb, the more big mountains you climb, you face the unexpected, and then you become much more efficient. With that suffering, you just get used to it. And still, even today, if I go to climb even a 5,000, and when I have to wake up at 11 p.m. and start my summit push all night, I'm still equally scared as I was when I was attempting Everest. So you never get over it, but you get used to it, and you start giving your best. So I think the best way to prepare mentally is by going and spending more and more time in the Himalayas, trying to replicate something like Everest.
So this is a question I think you've alluded to it, but I want to ask, what other peaks did you climb before attempting Mount Everest?
I did climb a lot of smaller mountains between 13,000 and 18,000 feet, but I also climbed above 6,000 meters, above 20,000 feet, like 20 times. I used to work as a guide in Ladakh, as a mountain guide, just out of passion and during my gap year. So at that time, I would climb some easier 6,000 meters as a guide. So 6 different peaks, 20 times, and I also climbed 7,000 in Nepal with the same team which I was attempting Everest with. So that also brought in much more efficiency, as I knew the Sherpas, I knew what to expect, I knew the system in Nepal, and I got to test my body and gear at a similar altitude like Everest. That mountain was actually more difficult than Everest, and from 7,000 meters, you start using supplemental oxygen at Everest. So at that mountain, I didn't use supplemental oxygen, just to experience the Everest journey on a smaller scale.
Wow. So I know you have flight simulators, and I'm not much, I don't know much about mountaineering. Do you have simulators that can actually help you practice without dealing with this, the harsh realities?
No, because like when I was at Camp 4, when I reached Camp 4, my tent was torn apart, pieces of it blown away. So this is something which no simulator would help you train. You take 1 hour to wear those boots up there, that too while struggling and while gasping for breath. So these are the very small stuff which no simulator can replicate, and even for altitude. So now there are some hypoxic generators which reduce the flow of oxygen, and you can sleep in that tent on your bed, or you can use those masks while training on a treadmill to somehow replicate altitude effect, but it's not completely proven yet. It definitely reduces oxygen and gives a hypoxic environment, but there are a lot of other factors in altitude, in the thin air up there. So I don't think you can actually simulate that, but at the same time, you can follow a simple scientific approach. Like I come across a lot of mountaineers from Arab countries since past few years who have never been to the Himalayas, but they invest 2 years, and even people from places like Boston who don't even have hills around them, forget mountains. They train in their skyscrapers, and they do something right. They do a lot of research, they read a lot, and they come so prepared in the physical aspects that they learn the techniques and they practice it here, and they do better than most Europeans and Indians in the Himalayas and even at Everest. Some of my friends who had the money but didn't have the time, they just trained well with a coach in their respective countries like Dubai and Qatar, and on their first visit to the Himalayas, they climbed Everest and did better than most of them.
Wow.
So I think the most important factor is the motivation, not the resources or infrastructure or access or finance or anything.
Wow, wow, that was awesome. What's the maximum age till one should attempt Everest, in your opinion?
Age is just a number, but the oldest person to climb Everest is 82, and this year a 75-year-old American climbed Everest. So, like whoever is making excuses about age, there are people who start at 60, 62 after retirement because that's when they have the time and money, and still they achieve that goal if they really want it.
Wow. So I guess the TiE Charter members have no excuses. They were hoping, I think you would say 50 or 60, and then everybody gets off the hook. So I guess 82, we don't have too many people at 82. Then I have one. Did you ever feel isolated that your peers could not relate to your goals? If so, what advice do you have for people pursuing a goal who will at times experience this feeling of isolation?
So I did feel that a lot, and to be honest, even today I have that fear of missing out. I feel that all my friends are in US, or all my friends are working full time, while I'm also working, but working from home and mostly doing my own stuff, doing a lot of stuff. But I don't know what's the answer to that. Like, are you ready to sacrifice that for me? I really wanted to achieve this goal. And although I missed that, but I knew that I did the right thing. So uh, I do feel isolated. I feel very low. So you have to be mentally very strong, and you have to keep yourself very busy and keep on progressing. To be honest, I am not as happy as I was before Everest right now, to be very honest, because back then I was in the journey under the pressure, chasing a goal. But now I do feel a little shallow, although I have another big, more challenging expedition coming up, and I'm also busy with a lot of other stuff. But still, to be very honest, the mental and emotional part is very complicated, and maybe everyone has to find their own ways by themselves after stepping into the journey.
Wow. First of all, I truly appreciate the authenticity with which you shared your perspective to that question, Harsh. That was awesome. Thank you. So, how do you plan your next 25 years? I think you started to talk about it. So, you're just 25, so we have a long way ahead. So, what happens? What can we expect in the next 25?
More mountains and going to the corporate, because out there I can motivate much more people to quit their jobs or balance it out and visit the Himalayas, or at least pick up running. So nothing makes me happier than than making someone go for a run. So now I'm writing a book, after which I'm gonna apply for MBA or something around sustainability in US. And then my dream is to balance it out in the US, like live in Colorado or Utah or somewhere where I train Monday to Friday, and on the weekends I can ski with you guys or my family or someone. So this is something which I'm looking in the long term, and every 2 years I would keep long term goals like I did for Everest. I don't travel a lot, but I stay at one place, consistently train to climb one big Himalayan mountain. So there are thousands of them, and I'll keep raising the benchmark for Indian mountaineering.
Wow. So I know Ganesh mentioned that you're also an environmentalist, and the Himalayas is obviously a key environmental focus area, the water tower of Asia, and so on. So, what are your thoughts and conditions around Everest and more broadly around the Himalayan region?
So the reason I became an environmentalist or a climate change advocate is because when I spent a lot of time in the Himalayas, especially Ladakh since 2016, I could see firsthand effects of climate change. Obviously, now even the urban environments are realizing it, but people in the mountains, people in those fragile environments suffer a lot. And I can see the glaciers melting. I can see the effects of these storms, people losing their lives, people losing their livelihood, people losing their homes. So that is why I wanted to do something for sustainable development in terms of that. And when I was creating a campaign for Everest, I decided that I want to create awareness about something which I care about. And from the 17 Sustainability Development Goals by United Nations, I picked solar energy, renewable energy, because I think that one thing can solve a lot of issues, not just on the environmental front, but also on the socio-economic perspective. Like me coming from India, I am an ambassador for an NGO named Project Chirag, and past few weeks I've been going to villages where within 3 hours from Mumbai, where there is no electricity, and people have to trek for 3 hours a day to fill 2 pots of water. And another surprising fact I came across is that girls have to quit school so that they can go and fill water. And the way solar solves this problem is that this NGO comes forward with some donors and they install a solar powered water pump which brings water to the village, drinking water. There are river sources or there are lakes few kilometers away, all these villages. And then they can also cultivate 2 crops a year. Otherwise, farmers are committing suicide in those villages or migrating to urban environments for survival. So I thought using solar, and obviously when I distributed those small lights, I used to think that what will this small 20-watt system help? But I I saw that people who don't have light, people don't who don't have electricity lose 12 hours uh, of their lives every day, and there's obviously no education, no healthcare, forget livelihood, and this is the condition of flatlands around India. So obviously the conditions in the Himalayas and those remote places where there are no roads is way worse. So I thought that with sustainable development we can solve a lot of issues and have an holistic uplifting of those remote communities.
Wow, that was quite well thought out plan, and so we look forward to supporting you in your endeavors. I promised you that when we first spoke, and there are a lot of accomplished people who have been hearing you for the last 45 minutes or so, Harsh. So I promise you that there will be some assistance provided to you as we go forward. And who are the people you would credit for motivating you and keeping you optimistic? That's part one of my question. And the part two is, while on the trek, how important was your team? I mean, you keep mentioning your Sherpa, so we all understand that Sherpas are key, but the larger team, and you also said that after you contracted COVID, the rest of your team left and made the summit. So some kind of story around that would be very helpful. One, kept you positively focused, and then what happened along the way?
So my team couldn't make it to the summit. They had to return from the summit camp, but they were very motivating, very supportive. So even when I got COVID, uh, I came to know after half an hour. I was busy packing and I was excited for the night, and I had no symptoms, so it was completely unexpected. And when I saw the test, I saw my teammates and they were blank. They already knew, but no one could break it to me because they knew that it was what it meant to me, and I had worked way harder than most of them to achieve this. And my friend who was also from my team, and he got COVID and he was supposed to be evacuated few days earlier. He was in the hospital, so he kept on motivating me that Harsh, I'm so sorry that I gave you COVID. He was in that guilt, but then he kept on saying that don't worry, something will work out, and you just think about the next day. And similarly, I was talking to few other friends, some of my donors, my NGO partner, and I wish I could even give a list of people who have helped me on this journey, but there are like thousands of them, because something which Ganesh might say, something which someone might comment would be a huge motivating factor for me. Someone might donate just $5 to my campaign, but he taking that effort, and that $5 might be a lot for him. Or and a lot of people, they don't even tell me for a few years, but they look up to me and go take up some activity or go take up some challenge or feel inspired. So I think inspiring others was the biggest motivating factor for me, and I'm very fortunate to be blessed with a very wide network with a lot of friends who always supported me. So a lot of people like you from your age group, especially like the doctors who introduced me to hiking, they kept on telling me that, go son, you live your dreams, you live our dreams through your life, and we will support you no matter what. So fortunately, I didn't have to take most people's support, but they even offering that and pushing me ahead was a very big motivating factor. And I always kept surrounding myself with positive thinkers.
That's an interesting point. There's a statement that you become the average of 5 people you surround yourself with. So were you aware of that, and did you choose those 5 people around you consciously, or did you have thousands?
Uh, Sorry, yeah, but I had thousands. So the reason even today I don't have a good social life is because everyone thinks I'm busy with someone else. And I always had friends who were like above the age of 50 or 60. And because I was always working, and I was asking them questions, learning from more experienced people, whether it came to business or whether it came to mountaineering or trekking. And I was always open to talk. I was always inquisitive about their life lessons, their journeys, and what they thought about stuff, about anything. So, yeah, I have a close circle of 5 friends, and even the best of friends I have. Back then, I didn't know about this. So, some of them were very, very lazy and unproductive, but I think it's okay. Like, it's all about destiny. And today, I do choose my company very wisely. I go for hustlers, and one reason why I wanna come to US is because most of my productive friends are there, and I know it will be very difficult for me to adjust after living the laid back life in the Himalayas. I've become very, very lazy because I have had so many realizations that I don't get motivation to chase monetary goals or anything. But to change that, I want to be among productive people and have those 5 key people who would uplift my life as well. And I just compare my life that if I can climb Everest and be disciplined and consistent for that, maybe I can do well in other fields as well.
Wow. So one of the things is you say about productive life. Did you know that 92% of high achievers are, many of them are unhappy? So if you've reached a level of fulfillment, sometimes channeling your energy, like you were talking about how to support sustainability and so on, would be very, very productive and life enhancing for so many others. So I think it's really about channeling your amazing energy to worthy causes would be something that we'd all look forward to tracking. There was one technical question that looks like I missed, and uh, it was, how did you overcome altitude sickness?
I did not have altitude sickness at Everest. And if you take most of the precautions, like you gain just 1,000 feet over a day, the reason we take 2 months to climb Mount Everest is because you slowly gain altitude and then you rest and recover at a lower altitude, and you do that a lot of times. So if you do everything right, if you don't push too hard, if you are well prepared, and if you drink a lot of water, things should be fine. Still, things can go wrong, but I did not have any altitude sickness at this mountain. There have been cases earlier where I had high altitude pulmonary edema. I was almost like I was very close to death, and I had to be rescued while I was guiding the Indian Air Force at a mountain in Ladakh. So it can hit anyone, and it has nothing to do with um, fitness of a person. It's purely on luck and whether you take the right precautions, the right acclimatization procedure or not. But I always have backup. I have trained myself in wilderness first responder from a US institute, Wilderness Medicine Institute. So I think we handle it when it comes to that. But altitude sickness is a very wide topic which I cannot really answer to since I'm not from a medical background.
Got it. And we have one question about the litter we humans do on the mountain, and how do we somehow, are we destroying the mountain? What are your thoughts on that? And like to hear those.
I don't think people, at least trekkers and mountaineers, really litter in the mountain. So obviously there's some trash at most of the beach, which is from 50 years ago, and many a time it's from the locals because they don't know it's wrong. Uh, but now people like me and a lot of others are going and bringing that trash back. Like especially around Everest, there is a lot of criticism that like it's a tourist place. There are a lot of people. There's a lot of trash, but it's not true. It's just criticism, marketing. The Western media tries to defame it, or it's just the audience, the viewers like to see negativity, like to criticize. It's a human attitude. But I focus on the positive. So definitely there are some shortcomings, but it's not as bad. At least the mountains are not bad. And if we cannot keep the beaches in places like Mumbai, we cannot keep the roads of Mumbai clean, then we shouldn't judge places like Everest or other peaks where there are just 300 people going in a year. So it's a sad thing that the weather window comes just for one day thanks to climate change. So all 300 people attempt one night, and there can be some better crowd management. But compared to that, Mont Blanc and Denali have like 100,000 people going every year, and nobody talks about that. So I think the best we can do is only create awareness and set example, go more responsibly, go in a sustainable way as a responsible adventurer.
Well, as we're coming up on the top of the hour, I wanted to kind of share that you might have redefined the word lazy, Harsh, because we thought lazy meant something else. I think today you've redefined the word lazy for all of us, which means work your butt off and keep at it. So thank you again. And I would like for you to share any last thoughts.
So I would like to close this with just one thing, like because a lot of you guys might be thinking or would later ask me, hey, do you think I can climb Everest? And my answer to all of them is yes. If an 82-year-old guy can climb Everest, if a blind person can climb Everest, if an amputee can climb Everest, if a lazy, just another engineer like me can climb Everest, then anyone can climb Everest. But are you ready to put in the work? Are you ready to go through the journey? And I would really recommend that journey because it's a great journey. It's a very fulfilling one. It's a very rich experience. But are you ready to make those sacrifices and be consistent, have that long-term goal? If yes, then yeah, you should definitely go for it. And I would love to get a mail from one of the participants out here a few years later that, hey, you know what, that talk was also one of the changing points which motivated me, and I just climbed Everest, or I just did this inspired from that.
Well, I'm hoping you'll get many such mails as well, not just in climbing Everest, in everybody climbing their own personal Everest. So I've also seen in the chat a lot of people saying you already motivated them. I really want to thank you for agreeing to speak to us and preparing so diligently. As I can see, you take everything seriously, and you took my request for this TiE Talk very seriously, and I want to thank you for that. On behalf of TiE Pittsburgh, all of us would like to thank. So if you guys can unmute and really clap so that Harsh can hear that even in a virtual environment, we can actually celebrate. Come on, guys, let's hear it.
No, thank you. That's not necessary. uh, uh, I'm not like I like to be very modest, so I'm not used to claps or any felicitation. But thank you everyone for investing in my time and investing your valuable time in my story, and I hope it added value to everyone. And thank you, Krishna, and everyone else.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck and
Thank
best
you.
wishes.
Good luck, Harsh. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Harsh. Great story. Enjoyed it.
Thank you
Thank you,
again.
everyone.